Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Good, Brave, and Heroic podcast. I am Johanna, if you don't already know me, and my co-host and husband.
I haven't done that in a while. My name is Eric Munoz Jr.
Why are you like this?
Why am I like this?
No.
That is a good question. That is a very good question, and it is pertinent to our topic of the day.
Is it?
Yeah. Navigating marriage. What was it?
What is it?
Navigating marriage when you grew up very differently. So, did we grow up differently?
Of course not. No.
I mean, clearly, if anybody saw your Valley of the Heroic podcast episode.
Mm-hmm. Did you?
Did you? They got a deeper look into some of your childhood. And not the thumbs up. They got a deeper look into your childhood. You know, we both had our set of like trauma and whatever, you know.
Challenges,
everybody has
hurdles.
their trauma, challenges, hurdles, hurts.
Well, you know what? I've met some pretty healthy people who don't know what that's like. And I'm like, wow, that must be nice. Like they have regular life
challenges.
Not like trauma's like a part of it. And I'm like, wow.
They got RLC, regular life challenges.
Oh, yeah. Is that, did you just make that up or is that
Yeah.
something? Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, like painful things is not the only thing that influences who you are as a person. There's, you know, your family of origin and kind of like how your family system is and what your family culture is like. And so when we got married, you know, you love a person so deeply. And I don't know, I feel like marriage advice is so bad.
Jeez.
You either have people who are just like, oh, just wait. Like they talk to you like your life is over.
Oh, yeah.
And then you have people that are just like, they give very generic advice. But one thing that you don't, you're not prepared for, I think, is the fact of how different you are as people. Because if, let's say you didn't even move out, like both of us did. We lived with our parents, and then we moved out together. Mm-hmm. We were each other's first
Very
roommates.
traditional.
Yeah, very traditional. We both went to school, finished college, started working, got married, right? Mm-hmm. It was like, I've never lived with anybody else. Boom, all of a sudden,
Romantically.
we're married. No, at all. You know, I lived with my family, and that's it.
That's what I meant.
Oh,
Romantically,
yeah.
because everybody else you've lived with is family.
Right, exactly. And everybody that I lived with, my family, we're all used to our family system.
You had your own dynamic.
The own dynamic that we have. And then you get married and all of a sudden it's like, clash. We did clash.
Not everyone clashes.
In silly ways too, though.
Yeah, like so the clashing wasn't all like explosive, horrible.
No, it's
Some
not
of
all
it was
explosive.
like, explosive in the sense like, that's revolutionary. Let's keep doing that.
Yeah.
Or I never knew that before.
Yeah. And then others are like, why are you like this? Like you asked in the beginning of the episode. Like, okay, I have my favorite one that I always tell all the time.
Which was that?
You not filling the ice tray after you're done.
Oh my God, dale con el ice tray.
Oh my, I never understood that. Or my, actually this one is probably my favorite one. How you brush your teeth.
We're really going to go there? Wow. Listen,
That's not even that crazy.
Be grateful that they get brushed and they get brushed well, no matter the chaos that occurs.
No, okay. You're thinking about the other thing about brushing your teeth, which people are going to be like, how many things does she have about brushing your teeth? I'm talking about when you used to put your leg up on the toilet.
Oh, yeah. It's so comfy.
That's what you always said. And I'm like, how is that comfy?
I don't know. I hate that. I can't do that in our bathroom now. It's so weird.
It's so hilarious.
It's so annoying.
Oh my goodness. The first time I saw that, I was like, what are you doing? Like, and you're just like, it's comfy. And the ice tray, I was just like, yo, once you're done, like if you use the last ice cube, you need to fill the ice tray.
No, that's not what it was.
What was it?
Because if it's the last ice cube, I'm going to fill the ice tray because I'm that kind of person. I hate leaving things back in the fridge when they're empty. It makes no sense. It was that I wouldn't refill as we took out.
Oh, right. Yeah, because I just keep refilling it so that it never runs out of ice.
Yeah.
Because I hate getting to one ice cube. Yeah, you're right.
Don't
Although
blame
there
me.
were times where you didn't fill it at all.
Don't blame me.
remember.
Because I also didn't care for cold water and we have a fridge, so we just put our beverages in there.
Anyways, so there's silly ways that you clash. There's serious ways that you clash, right? Like I'm not as clean as you are.
I wouldn't say clean because you are clean or else this wouldn't work. You're not dirty.
Well, I'm not as organized,
Yeah.
right? I can sometimes have clutter. I make piles of stuff and whatever.
It's fun.
It's they're gonna get the wrong idea. They're gonna be like, "Oh, well, this is good," like.
It's very sarcastic.
No, but the idea is that it can be difficult because you grew up very differently. You grew up with a certain set of rules. Like you grew up with a very specific set of rules and ways that the dynamic of your household needed to be. Mine was a little bit more like
What does that mean, Eric? I know what
chaos. Chaos. We was just kind of like everybody figure it out for yourself.
But it didn't feel like chaos until you got married. Then you realized, wait, this is chaotic. Because then you noticed, oh my gosh, I need structure.
Well, that's the thing. The reason why I felt that way was because the both of us, we let go of our old family system and we created our own.
Yeah, we combined. We combined certain things of each that did work.
I think we can end it right there. That teaches the whole thing. No, but seriously, like it's like we both. I think I hear a lot of people having problems with each other. You're gonna have problems regardless. Married couples, you're gonna have problems because you're gonna have different sets of views, and that's okay. But some of them are just things that people refuse to let go.
Yeah.
This is why I always tell people before they get married to talk about your non-negotiables. Do you want to share what non-negotiables are?
Sure. Yeah. We've talked about it in, I don't know what episode, but we talked about it. Just go and check all the episodes and then you'll find it. So non-negotiables are very foundational things that are non-negotiable. So you won't compromise on that. It's very black and white for you. So for instance, maybe for someone having a degree might be a non-negotiable. Maybe you want your partner and you to both be academics. And maybe like if the person you're interested in doesn't have a degree, doesn't look to get a degree, maybe that's a non-negotiable. You're like, okay, that's two different paths. I'm not gonna do that. Or maybe your faith is a non-negotiable. So if you don't follow the same faith as devotedly as I do, then this won't work. Or maybe something within finances. Is what I can think of. Or maybe even parenting.
Yeah.
I don't want
Or
to.
do you even want kids?
Yeah, do you even want kids? Or the way your parenting style. I choose not to physically discipline my child. And the other is like, well, I think that it's important that you do. And so that's a non-negotiable, something that you're not willing to compromise on.
And some of them, there's like a thin line between a non-negotiable and something that's personality based. So the example you just gave makes me think of one that I commonly see with people is that one parent is strict and the other one is very carefree, like permissive, and they clash with each other. And the main problem with that one is not even a non-negotiable. Now it's just like a personality thing. There might be elements of it that are non-negotiable, like spanking or whatever, all that stuff. But like the general way of being that a person has is not a non-negotiable. That's just who they are, right? So a person might be a little bit more carefree in their parenting style. The problem comes when you're not working together, which I think is the most important thing. We were able to take we didn't have any contrasting non-negotiables. Our non-negotiables aligned very well. That's the first hump to get over. After that, you get to like the being raised differently,
Ways of
the
thinking.
preferences, yeah, the ways of thinking, the biases. It's like, oh, I prefer the ice tray to always be full, and then sometimes you're going through stress in your life, so now this little thing that's really not that significant is really irritating you, but your problem is deeper, right? And so I think what's really important is for married couples to be able to have conversations about things like their non-negotiables. And then when you get married, you can then start to talk about the personality things. Oh, there's this thing that you do that it bothers me. And here's why it bothers me. Or I don't even know why it bothers me. Can we talk about it? I feel like we need to be more strict with kids. I feel like we need to be more free with the kids and give them more freedom. Well, why do you feel that way? Having those conversations is important, because then when you don't, and one person just kind of overpowers the other one, you either have one person, typically the father, overpowering the wife, or you have one person going behind the other one's back, typically the wife, right? In most like structured households where they have like male headship, right? And we believe in male headship, but we work together as a team. You are my teammate. I may be the head, but you're the neck. So you move me around all over the place, right? So all jokes aside, it's like, that's a whole other conversation. I don't even want to get into it. But if you're not able to do that, then now you have one person being secretive, another person being overbearing and overpowering the other person. And that's not a team. That's not a team, right? That's not even leadership. That's bad leadership. So you got to be able to have those conversations. And if you're not even having the non-negotiable conversation, then that's even worse, because now you bring something into the marriage that is a non-negotiable for you. And a lot of times they'll know about it. Like a person who wants to have kids really bad and a person who doesn't want to have kids at all.
Yeah.
They get married. What does this lead to? Oh, I hope I could change them. Years pass by, resentment. Now you have bitterness in your marriage. Now you have disdain for that other person. And then it could end in divorce.
Yeah. So I think a lot of these conversations are always good to have before you get married. Like finances is a big one. The way that you handle money, manage money, whether you save or you don't save, whether you are someone who likes to invest your money, whether you use cash or credit cards, whether you use credit cards at all or just debit cards. I think these are important conversations to have before getting married, so that you're not walking into a marriage full of surprises. And I also think it's important that while you're dating, if you find like little things that even in the slightest bit kind of make you go, huh?
What was that?
Yeah. Instead of just letting it go like it's a one-time thing or explaining it away, it doesn't hurt to talk about it and ask, because that one, can be a pattern that you're noticing that is coming up just while you're dating that you don't see every day because you're not living in the same space and married. But then when you do get married, it is a thing for them. And it's like,
and it's worse.
And then it feels worse because it's a pattern. It's a part of their life and it affects you and you don't like it. And then you start going, oh my God, like whatever you think.
Why is this happening?
Yeah. So yeah, I think it's important that while you're dating or engaged, don't let not saying that, please don't misunderstand and think like, don't let every little thing go. It's not about letting it go. It's about having conversation and asking and, like wondering and being curious. And I think it's important to remain curious when you're talking to your spouse or your fiance. Remain curious rather than accusatory. Being on the defense and being like, well, this bothered me, and almost kind of like throwing it at them. Like, what are you going to do about it? Because then it puts the other person in the space where it's like they're the bad guy.
Yeah.
And you need to change it so it doesn't affect me. And there are granted times where you might be offended, and that's fine. But I think that one thing that helped us a lot was eventually realizing that when we would get into disagreements or approach each other in conversations, when it felt like it was getting very me versus you, we would start to remind each other we're on the same team. What is the goal of the conversation still the same? because sometimes one of us would get elevated.
Yeah.
And so, we would have to kind of check in with each other or check each other like, okay, you're getting really upset about it. We're losing track of what the goal is. And that sounds very neat, but it doesn't always look that neat.
Yeah.
Till this day, I still have to work on how I'm going to approach you about something that either I didn't like, and I get like nervous about it because no one likes issues, no one likes confrontation. And I know I can talk to you about these things, but I still get nervous about bringing stuff up.
Yeah.
For whatever reasons, whether it's past trauma, whether it's just the way that our conversations used to go. Yeah, so I think it's very affirming when your spouse is bringing something up, to whether you like what they're saying or not, to listen, to take into consideration what they're saying. And you can have an opposing view, but I think rather than getting defensive immediately and getting ready to fight about it, it's affirming to still engage in the conversation.
Yeah, I want to highlight the fact that one of the things I really had to do was I really had to do a lot of internal work to get better at those conversations, because part of my dynamic growing up was an air of defensiveness. If you felt like somebody was coming at you, just like defending yourself at all costs. And I carried those things in me into our marriage, right? And so I took a lot of things way more personal than they really were. And then that would turn into shame, and shame would cause this cycle of like spiraling. And the thing about shame that I learned that was so insightful is that we would have a situation, right? And because I love you, I would feel bad about it, and that would turn into shame. Well, the moment that it turns into shame, now I'm making it about me. And when I learned that shame makes it about you and it's no longer about the other person, that was very helpful for me, because I don't want to do that. Now I'm making it about me. Like, we're having a conversation, you're expressing your heart, and I'm making it about me. How am I elevating you as my wife and listening to you? So I had to do a lot of internal work to be able to get to a place where I could actually hear you well and understand you, and then take action in my life. And that's still a growing process that I'm going through. But the biggest thing that I want to highlight about that is that each person in the marriage needs to commit to their own personal growth.
Yeah.
You need to make a commitment to figure your crap out,
Yeah.
to look at the things that were from your childhood or just your personality that they're not so good. They hurt your marriage. They hurt your relationship. It's not necessarily that they're the worst thing in the world, but they do impact it.
Yeah.
So what can you do to work on that? That's really important. And I don't see enough people doing that. I see a lot of people ignoring stuff, a lot of people just complaining about the other person. Well, she never does this and she never does that. And, it's also important to pray about it too, to pray about what God can reveal to you. Because the thing about marriage that I always say is that marriage is a mirror. We reflect back to each other who we are and what's inside of us. And that is a beautiful thing and a scary thing in marriage. Just to switch gears a little bit, I want to ask you, because as you were talking, I was thinking about the fact that as a male, I have a certain set of privilege that whenever you have privilege, you're not aware of it. So I'd love to hear your perspective as a woman and as a wife. Why are you smiling? You smiled at me and made me
Giddy.
give me butterflies. Yeah, everything went out my brain because you smiled. No, I'm just
Sorry.
kidding. It's okay. As a woman and as a wife, how, and this is something I think you do very well. But one thing that really pains me is whenever I see like a marriage where the woman is completely silenced, and sometimes not in overt ways. Like there's ones where you're just like, oh, is she even allowed to breathe, right? But some of them are more like subversive, under the cover, right? Maybe people don't even notice it. Maybe nobody notice it, because it's just in the home. But as a wife, how do you like stand up for your own voice within the marriage? How do you speak for yourself as a woman in a male to female relationship that our marriage is? And how do you not necessarily get your own way, but like, how do you maintain your voice? Not talking about what I do to help do that, but like, how do you do it yourself, if that makes sense?
That's a really good question. It's a super interesting question because given upbringing, my upbringing was very mixed. So both of my parents really instilled in me this independence, this not needing to depend on a man or on a husband. They really made sure that I understood that I needed to only depend on myself because un hombre va y viene. And your degree will never fail you. Your education will never fail you. It will always be there. You'll always have stability with your degree and a stable job and money and blah, 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 blah to sustain yourself. But I also grew up in a home where the message was contradictory to that because it was a very traditional home where my father was the head of the household and he was the breadwinner and my mom raised the kids. And she was a stay-at-home mom. And she also worked when she could, but she was mainly a stay-at-home mom. And then things happened throughout the years where she ended up being the breadwinner too. But because it was such a toxic dynamic in their marriage and then eventually, of course, within the family, it was very much what I say goes. When it came to my father. And it was like my mother didn't have a voice, or she didn't, like, her opinion wasn't as valuable. And so I saw that growing up. So it was interesting because, as you know, if you saw my podcast on Value of the Heroic, I became the advocate. I became the voice. But then becoming a wife, it was like, even though I was already very independent, even though I was already very, I could depend on myself, and I just was used to depending on myself because of my upbringing, I still kind of sometimes fell into that dynamic that I was used to seeing, even though I made sure, or I tried to make sure that I would never. Yeah, not that you were never abusive, but I kind of like, there were moments where I could feel myself just hide in your shadow and stay there. Or maybe even make excuses or justify is probably the better word. Because once I was in the role, that's just, I guess, what my mind just knew to do, even though logically I was like, this feels odd. So that was very interesting to navigate. And then as we each worked on ourselves internally and figured out everything that we had to figure out, I started to adopt this idea that I was going to practice doing the things that I don't know how to do, which was stuff like saying what I need, saying what I want, saying what I don't like, which were things that I never was used to doing for myself, maybe for others, but not for myself. And I knew that I had big emotions that I also didn't know how to manage because I never had the chance to growing up, because I always like shut them down so that I could just execute in the middle of crisis, which my life was almost always in crisis. So I didn't know how to express those emotions. I just knew how to take action. And I kind of almost expected that from others. So I'm like, I know he feels my wrath right now. Like, I know he knows that I'm angry. So why isn't he changing right now? Like, you clearly know I'm upset. And it would get, sometimes it would get a little bit like difficult. So I think I told myself, okay, it's probably not going to sound great every time, but I need to start practicing until I get better. The only way I'm going to know how to do this well, ask for what I need, ask for what I want, say what I don't like, or say what I'm noticing. If I don't practice that, I'm never going to get better at it. So I started doing it, and I would be shaking internally because I'm like, I'm going to be misunderstood. This is not going to come out right. And it almost never came out well. Mm-hmm. But I would always preface it with, hey, babe, I'm going to tell you something that's really difficult for me to say right now. And I may not have the right words. Please forgive me if this doesn't come out right, or if I say something in a way that just is offensive. That's not what I'm trying to do, but I'm trying really hard to find the right words to express what I need to. So hear me and just know that I'm coming from a good place. I'm working on it. And so I would always preface it, and maybe I did it a little too much, but I prefaced it that way so that you knew that I wasn't just coming at you like in an accusatory way. Like I wasn't like, I don't like when you do X, Y, and Z, like out of the blue. And that actually doesn't sound so bad, but I don't think I ever really saw a healthy communication like that, where there are disagreements and there are different points of views that you can talk about.
Yeah, and a back and forth.
Yeah, so I had to tell myself and encourage myself to say what I needed to say. And then when I said what I needed to say, I had to push myself to stay in the conversation. And if I still didn't feel like I was being understood, then I would have to keep pushing myself to saying, okay, let me try it this way, or I just want you to understand my point of view, or how I got there, or whatever the case. So I had to keep pushing myself to speak up for myself, so that more so for myself, so I could, because it's not like you were not allowing me to. It was that I didn't know how to, so I had to keep practicing that, because I knew that you valued my opinion and you valued my voice. But if I kept those thoughts to myself, we wouldn't be where we are today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good point. And that kind of brings it back to the whole point of to me, in my opinion, the most important thing about dealing with these differences, the most important thing about dealing with the frustrations that you have, whether, like I know we spoke mainly about like childhood stuff, right? But, this kind of applies to everything, is being committed to working together to create your own dynamic,
Yeah.
right? And there is a give and take inside of that. There's most definitely a give and take. And if we're too selfish, if we're too self-absorbed and only focusing on what I want and I want it now, then you're never going to get there. And I think there's so many people that want love, but they don't want the other person.
That's sad.
They just want love. I want to be loved. I don't want you to show up as you are right now, because that makes it too messy. But real love gets messy. Mm-hmm. In that mess, that's where you find the person that is worth loving, even though you're like, hey, you hurt me.
Yeah.
You don't fill up the ice tray.
Gotta go in ice tray.
You grew up this way, and it annoys me when you tell me that you want me to do it that way. All of these different things, serious things, deep hurts, just small annoyances, small things, little idiosyncrasies, all of these things all together. If you're able to, as a couple, jump and dive into that mess together, then you can have a really beautiful thing. Mm-hmm. But if you're trying to stay outside of the puddle and not get messy, you're not in the puddle. You're not in it. Mm-hmm. You're maybe kicking your feet in love, but you're not being inundated with love, because the mess is where you truly find your person.
Yeah. Yeah.
When you're committed to that person, and, as Christians, we believe that we don't believe in divorce, right? And with that being said, though, that commitment, that deep level commitment till death do us part, which so many people say without truly meaning, like truly taking the time to think about what that really means in sickness and in health, in pain and in triumph, in joy and in sadness, in highs and in lows. That is marriage.
Yeah.
That is love. Being able to say, hey, you know what? We grew up completely differently, but let's make something new. And that's both a personal thing and an interpersonal thing. We have to both do it together and individually.
Yeah.
You have to be equally committed to the other person as you are committed to yourself for you to grow. And as we continue to do that, our children have a new foundation, a new foundation for them to grow from. And then they'll go and they'll get married and they'll create their own new culture
Yeah.
with whatever we scare them with, because we're not perfect, right? But and our parents weren't perfect either. So but like I really feel to highlight the beauty that is that, right? Like we focus so much on the negative of it, but there's so much beauty there as well.
Yeah.
Where you could look at this whole situation, and sometimes a lot of it is in hindsight, because when you're going through the thick of it, especially when it's
not
the
cute.
serious ones, it's not fun.
Yeah.
Right. But you can look in hindsight and say, wow, we made it here. I think about that all the time with you and me. I'm just like, wow, we made it here. We almost didn't.
And in the middle of it, it was dark in the middle of those really low lows. Not only is it dark, but it almost feels like you're drowning sometimes. It almost feels like impossible and there's no way out. But I think when you decide to commit even to that person, even in that low moment, even when the other person might be at their lowest and not their best version of themselves, when you still choose to commit to that person, because that person isn't all just great qualities, they're also their flaws. It's a really difficult thing to commit to, but you got to recommit to it once you're married and you're in the middle of that, because you won't know, if you don't give it your all, you won't know what is on the other side of it. You have to dive in and recommit. I know I had to choose to recommit many times when we were in those dark places. And it was difficult because you either want to run from that because you want to keep safe.
Yeah.
Or you choose to dive in with that person and trust that this is a part of that journey and you have to give it your all. Whatever the outcome is, you give it your all.
And there's going to be times where one person is diving in and the other person isn't. But if that happens all the time, then
that's a problem.
That's a problem.
Yeah.
Both people have to dive in.
Yeah.
Eventually, both of you have to be willing. And yes, there's going to be times where you have lows. Like my depression season, I was somebody else.
Yeah. And I remember during those times, I was even honest with you. And I would say like, hey, listen, I'm going to choose to keep moving forward with you, but know that it's scary to do it. And it's hard for me to do it.
Yeah.
So just know that it's hard. I'm doing it, but it is hard. And I would tell you that just so that, you weren't lost about how I'm feeling too. Like, so, I mean, everyone says communication is important, but I think that what you communicate is just as important. And how you communicate it is just as important. And how vulnerable you are about that is just as important. It's not talking just to talk. It has to be intentional. And I think sharing with you where I was, yet I was still choosing to remain there, was important for you to know, so that we knew like what kind of waters we were stepping into.
When it comes to navigating differences in a marriage, I think that the key word there is like navigating. Just being willing to do it. Like I think people have to take a step back and actually ask themselves, am I actually living in such a way that shows that I'm willing? Am I actually willing? And if the answer is no, it's not for you to be like, oh, okay, no, well, oh, well. No, turn that around. Like, yo, there was a point. And we're not talking about very specific circumstances like abuse, infidelity, certain things. Those are more nuanced topics. But if it's just like you're going through a low in your marriage, sometimes people go through low years. You have kids. There's less time to be intimate with each other, and I'm not just
Connected.
talking sex. I'm talking being connected with that person. So you're kind of like you're in a roommate phase. You know, all those things, right? Like, yo, do something. Do something about it.
Yeah, don't
Whether
just
you're
sit there
the
and
guy
pout.
or the girl, like it doesn't matter. Do something about
Yeah.
it. Like, pick yourself up by your bootstraps and say, yo, at one point in my life, I loved this woman deeply. And you still do. And that was what started my journey out of the depression. When I told myself, I know I still love her. I don't feel like I do, because my depression is telling me you don't love her, you don't love yourself, you want to delete yourself.
You don't deserve happiness.
I don't deserve happiness. I'm a monster. I'm going to destroy everything. I need to go live off in isolation. These are the thoughts I was thinking. I was thinking about changing my careers. I was thinking about living in isolation. I was thinking about everything. Stupid. Completely dumb. And that day I said, I'm going to regret this. Are the decisions that you are making right now decisions that you will regret? Will you actually be okay if you leave that person? These are questions that people need to ask themselves. A lot of times it's no. Yeah, on IG, you're going to post like you're happy. Then you're going to put your phone down and start crying because you miss your wife. And you realize how much she did for you, bro. And how much she meant to you. And how much more meaningful love with her was than to be able to get into whatever panties you want to get into, bro. Like, this is real stuff. People need to be serious with themselves and say that the true beauty of life, love, is finding that person, committing to them, and journeying through whatever it is that you're going through, solving whatever differences you have,
Yeah.
figuring it out together, getting messy together, being willing to do that. And that's like, boom.
Yeah. I just want to say one last thing. I don't want anyone to misunderstand or get it twisted. When I say that you have to choose to commit yourself because you've already made this lifelong commitment, I don't mean become a doormat.
Yeah.
Not at all. Like, when there were times in these low moments where Eric was either speaking to me a way that I was not happy about,
I was bad. It was bad.
or whatever, or he looked at me a certain way, or he put the dish a certain way, or he like left his chair open knowing darn well, or he left his shoe somewhere, whatever. If there was something there that just in general
Crossed the
was,
line.
a boundary that was crossed, I wasn't just sitting there like, okay, well, he's depressed, it's okay. It's not really him. It's the depression. Nope. I love you. I respect you. We will work through this. I will support you. But this boundary cannot be crossed. Please don't talk to me like that again. I didn't like the way that you spoke to me just now. I didn't like the words that you used. I think we need to take a breather because I don't like the way this is going. And it doesn't have to be disrespectful, even if the other person was.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be disrespectful. And it wasn't always that neat. It didn't always look that neat. It was very messy at the time. And it was hard to navigate because you get kind of clouded when you're like, whoa, why is the person that I love acting this way toward me? This is weird. And so you don't always know how to navigate it. But if you've got something going off inside of you, like this isn't okay, say something. Say something, because you can still be supportive of that person and love that person and be honest about making sure that they still respect you.
Yeah.
And not cross those boundaries.
Good.
Yep.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for being here for today's episode. We hope that you guys enjoyed it. Make sure that you hit the playlist if you want to watch more Good, Brave, and Heroic episodes. And if you haven't done so already, hit that subscribe button to help support the channel and hit that like button. And if you want to be extra generous and you feel like this episode would bless somebody, share it with them as well. We will see you guys in the next one. Have a great week. Peace.